When learning about the life of this genius, who is called the greatest scientist of all times and peoples, it is impossible not to be sad and shed tears for the difficulties he experienced in his youth. Even when listing the sciences he conducted research, one cannot help but be amazed. Chemist, physicist, economist, technologist, geologist, meteorologist, pedagogue, encyclopedist, creator of the periodic table of chemical elements, Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev. Dmitry Mendeleev was born on February 8, 1834 in the Tobolsk region of Russia. He was the 17th child in the family. On the same day, his father lost his eyesight and retired. His mother, Maria Dmitrievna, had to take care of both the upbringing of the children and their livelihood. The large family had to move to the village of Eremzienka, located 30 kilometers from Tobolsk, where his brother, who lived in Moscow, had a small glass factory. The brother entrusted the management of the factory to his sister. Maria Dmitrievna was engaged in production and organized a subsidiary farm. My first impressions of nature, people, and industrial work were formed at the glass factory run by my beloved mother, Dmitry later recalled. He entered the gymnasium early. At first, he showed great interest in all sciences. But soon the subjects he did not like showed themselves. Latin especially bothered him. Dmitry rarely received satisfactory grades in this subject. Out of respect for his father, Dmitry, who was constantly lagging behind in his studies, was not kept in the second grade or expelled from school. Soon he began to be interested in physics, mathematics, geography, astronomy, history. He already achieved success in his studies. Dmitry's graduation certificate recorded satisfactory grades in only 2 subjects, theology and Russian literature. Mendeleev's style, no matter how heavy, was rich in images and ideas. It was just that he often tried to convey more ideas in one sentence. Dmitry dedicated his first major scientific work on aqueous solutions to the memory of his mother. This work is dedicated to the memory of my mother from her cradle. My mother, working in the factory, was able to raise me only with her own labor, give me an exemplary upbringing, and correct my mistakes with love. My mother, spending her last strength and means, brought me to Siberia to devote myself to science. When she died, she bequeathed to me to avoid empty dreams, to achieve the goal only through labor, to seek the divine and scientific truth patiently, not in words. Because she understood well that with the help of science, without violence, with love, errors and all superstitions are eliminated, and the defense of the truth gained, future free development, general well-being, and inner happiness are achieved. Mendeleev considered his mother's will sacred. Dmitry graduated from the gymnasium at the age of 15. However, first he faced a serious misfortune. His father, then his sister, died, and as if that were not enough, the glass factory where the finished products were stored also burned down. Maria Dmitrievna, who loved her youngest son very much and believed in his talent and hard work, risked canceling all production work, taking Dmitry and his daughter Lisa with her and going to Moscow to her brother. However, at that time, graduates of the Tobolsk Gymnasium were allowed to enter only Kazan University. His mother brought Dmitry to Petersburg to study at the Medical Surgical Academy. However, Dmitry, who attended only one anatomy lesson, once decided for himself that he would not be able to study science on corpses. He soon entered the Petersburg Pedagogical Institute, where his father had once studied. Dmitry was again beset by misfortune. In the fall of 1850, his mother died, and later his uncle Vasily, who had provided financial assistance to Dmitry, also died. Dmitry barely managed to keep his head up. Soon his 25-year-old sister Lisa also died of tuberculosis. The doctor discovered that Dmitry also had tuberculosis. However, Mendeleev did not lose heart, continued his education, studied a lot, was carried away by chemical research, and even managed to graduate from the institute with a gold medal. At the age of 21, Mendeleev successfully passed the final exams, and his diploma thesis on isomorphism was awarded the degree of Candidate of Sciences. During his student years, Mendeleev wrote 2 scientific works, Man as a Natural Being and Rodents of the Petersburg Province. The first scientific work, which was considered a textbook, was related to the general problems of philosophy and natural science. The second was devoted to biological systematization, which at that time was not without success. What was Mendeleev's main scientific achievement that put him in the first ranks of scientific geniuses? According to surveys by influential foreign experts, he is considered the most outstanding and greatest scientist of the 19th century. The famous English scientist and philosopher John Bernal called Mendeleev the Copernicus of the atomic system. Mendeleev's main scientific contribution is that he created the perfect building of the periodic system from the chaos of scattered chemical elements. This is how the chemical board of the world was illuminated. Mendeleev took a box of cards and wrote on each of them the properties of the 63 elements known to science at that time. He did this work over and over again. As a result, this element solitaire turned out to be a perfect system. Mendeleev first saw the periodic table of elements in a dream and, waking up, transferred what he saw to paper. Dmitri told his friend about it. In a dream, I saw a table in which all the elements were arranged in the correct order. As soon as I woke up, I transferred what I saw to a piece of paper. Only in one place I had to make a correction. According to his contemporaries, Mendeleev's discovery of the law of the change in the properties of chemical elements depending on their atomic weight greatly enriched the science of chemistry. The most interesting thing is that of the more than 500 scientific works he wrote, only 9% deal with chemistry. The scientific activity of this man with encyclopedic knowledge was multifaceted. Mendeleev was engaged in physics, metrology, aviation, meteorology, agriculture, economics, and even public education, studying methods of oil refining. In his free time, he sewed suitcases. The scientist wrote, "I myself am surprised at what I have done in my scientific life." Mendeleev was very interested in photography. He used a camera to capture various moments of scientific experiments. Later, in order to promote art, he began to collect photo reproductions of artists' works. He even published an article in the newspaper Golos about how a landscape painting affects the human psyche and the perception of oneself as a part of nature. The famous chemist M. Qua wrote, "He's one of the most brilliant chemists of the 19th century. He made numerous measurements of the physical constants of compounds. He studied the Donetsk coal deposits, worked out the theory of hydrates of solutions. He wrote Fundamentals of Chemistry. This work had a serious influence on the research of inorganic chemists." Mendeleev is the author of many valuable studies on chemistry, chemical technology, physics, economics, technology, geology, meteorology, airship flight, agriculture, public education, and the development of productive forces. In 1854 to 1856, Mendeleev studied the state of isophorism in crystals, determined the relationship between the crystal form of compounds and their chemical composition, and also discovered the dependence of the properties of chemical elements on their atomic mass. In 1860, he discovered the concept of the absolute boiling point of liquids, or crisis temperature. On December 16, 1860, he wrote, "The main subject of my activity is physical chemistry." Mendeleev is the author of the first textbook, Organic Chemistry, written in Russia in 1861. In 1859, he installed a pycnometer. With the help of the device, it became possible to determine the density of the liquid. In 1865 to 1887, he developed the theory of hydrates of solutions. He also put forward the idea of the existence of compounds with different compositions. In 1869, he published his corresponding article. At first glance, everything ended there. But this is not so. Before Mendeleev, there were those who proposed their own versions of the periodic system. The closest to Mendeleev's discovery was the German scientist Lothar Meyer. Meyer's table was the first example of the classification of elements at that time. However, Mendeleev's table was an ideal system. Not only the elements already known to science, but also if invisible elements were reflected in this system. Mendeleev theoretically stated their existence, but no one had yet proven the existence of these unknown elements. Their existence and properties were determined only by the intelligence and only by his will of the creator of the periodic system, by his ideas about the structure of the world. Mendeleev took risks, acting as a foresight man. Along with all this, he theoretically specified the atomic weights of some known chemical elements. Mendeleev boldly predicted in advance the chemical properties of some of the elements not yet known to science: gallium, scandium, germanium, and was not mistaken. A little later, he predicted ahead of time the existence of 8 yet undiscovered elements, including polonium, astatine, technetium, and francium. His system could be experimentally verified and refuted. But Mendeleev had pondered all this over the years, and the existence of a harmonious world system inspired him. In subsequent years, the empty cells in the table found their owners. It was the empty cells that would accommodate new elements that were Mendeleev's brilliant idea. Mendeleev's table anticipated the future. Until recently, scientists have been trying to unravel the secret meaning of Mendeleev's table. Hundreds of scientific articles are devoted to this topic every year. Many points still remain a mystery. This table also promises fruitful new discoveries. The flowering of Mendeleev's creativity coincides with the golden age of Russian culture, but it was thanks to Mendeleev that Russian science became more widely known in the world. He did a lot for the development of Russian scientific thought. Mendeleev's brilliant lectures at St. Petersburg University are unforgettable. In these lectures, the chemical element was presented not as an abstract object taken from space, but as an integral part of a whole being, the planet. No matter how many ideas and opinions were born in these lectures, the lecturer influenced the students with his logical ideas, his whole personality and clear, bright face. Academician V. Vernadsky, who was a student of Mendeleev, later wrote, "It is no coincidence that Vernadsky became one of the main creators of geochemistry and created a geochemical doctrine of the biosphere." An interesting fact is that among the 25 volumes of Mendeleev's works, only one volume is devoted to the periodic system of chemical elements, while he devoted 4 volumes to economic topics. Mendeleev wrote a number of original scientific works in general, in organic and organic chemistry, mineralogy, meteorology, geophysics, hydrodynamics, aviation, chemical technology, petrochemistry, metrology, sociology, agricultural economics, and other fields. He was a scientist with inexhaustible energy, tireless, ready to walk in mines and oil wells, soar into the sky in a balloon, invent new devices and technologies, and participate in the project to study the Northern Sea route. During his lifetime, he was called a genius, and he would jokingly dismiss him. "Genius? What genius? I have worked all my life, and this is genius to you?" He did not set himself against others with any supernatural talent. He noted that one does not become a person by itself. Only when we are together, we are human. Mendeleev rejected selfish individualism. Be proud of what is created for others. Mendeleev left behind more than 500 printed works and was the author of fundamental research in chemistry, physics, chemical technology, metrology, aviation, meteorology, agriculture, economics, public education, and other scientific directions. The scientist laid the foundation for the theory of solutions, proposed an industrial method of separating oil into fractions, promoted irrigation of lands, the use of mineral fertilizers. Mendeleev possessed a rare scientific mind. He foresaw the results of his scientific creative activity to an unimaginable extent. In 1857, Mendeleev became an associate professor at St. Petersburg University, and in 1859 to 1861, he conducted scientific practice at various universities in France and Germany. In 1859, he created a device that allowed him to determine the density of liquids, a pycnometer. In 1860, he discovered the absolute boiling point, the critical temperature of liquids. In 1863, his book Organic Chemistry was published, and soon he was awarded the Demidov Prize. In 1864, he was elected professor of chemistry at the St. Petersburg Institute of Technology. Mendeleev also taught at other universities. In 1865, Mendeleev defended his doctoral dissertation on the topic combination of alcohol with water. In this scientific work, he explained the basics of his teaching on the theory of solutions. In the same year, the 32-year-old Mendeleev was elected professor at St. Petersburg University and began writing his classic book, Fundamentals of Chemistry. This book was published 8 times in Russia during Mendeleev's lifetime and 5 times in English, German, and French. Mendeleev's discovery in 1869 of the periodic table of elements, which is considered the silent computer of chemists, was the greatest event in the history of chemistry in the 19th century, as well as the most outstanding achievement of human intelligence in the past millennium. The great scientist was a member of about 70 academies and scientific societies. Mendeleev defined his mission as follows. The first was scientific research, and the second was teaching. During Mendeleev's lifetime, the number of elements was 63. A year after his death, their number had increased to 86. In 1955, American physicists named the element they had synthesized Mendeleevium in honor of the brilliant scientist. Studying the gas environment, Mendeleev formulated the general equation of an ideal gas in 1874. This was a serious addition to the law of the dependence of the state of a gas on temperature, discovered by the physicist Clapeyron in 1834. Later, this equality was called the ClapeyronMendeleev equation. In 1877, Mendeleev put forward the theory of the formation of heavy lead zeppelins from oil. However, this idea is not currently accepted. He also proposed the transfer of oil in parts. In 1984, Mendeleev was declared the greatest scientist of all times and peoples by UNESCO. Mendeleev worked until the last days of his life. Continuing his scientific and pedagogical activities until his last breath, Mendeleev said about his life path shortly before his death, "I myself am surprised at what I did not do during my scientific activity, and I think I did well." Mendeleev, who died of pneumonia on January 20, 1907, at the age of 73, had only 3 words inscribed on his grave: Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev. He is buried next to the graves of his mother and son. He refused to have any words of praise or eulogy written on his grave while he was still alive.